Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. A day after the Pahalgam attack, India is still processing the horror. Tonight, we'll show you two sets of images. One capturing the fear and panic in the aftermath of the attack. The second capturing the grief and anger with Kashmiris holding rallies and saying, "Not in our name. Do not use this. Do not use us to justify this terrorism." Meanwhile, India is promising a loud and clear response. The Prime Minister has cut short his visit to Saudi Arabia. A string of security meetings were held today. We will look at the outcome and also at India's options. Also, how this Hamas-style attack has Pakistan's fingerprints all over it. What do we know about the attackers? The Resistance Front, Pakistan's latest terror proxy. What did the intelligence warnings in the run-up to the attack say? How targeting tourists was a shift in strategy and a sign of desperation. How Western media is downplaying yet another terrorist attack in India. What this means, this attack, what does it mean for Kashmir's revival? And the stories of the tourists who went to see Kashmir's beauty and met horror and death. Our thoughts and prayers with them and their families. We begin with the headlines. A powerful 6.2 magnitude earthquake hits off the coast of Istanbul. The impact was felt across Turkey's largest city. More than 50 aftershocks rocked the Istanbul region after the quake. There have been no reports of any serious damage or injuries. In February 2023, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit southeastern Turkey. It killed thousands of people and injured many more. China says the door is open for trade talks with Washington. It comes a day after the US president hinted at the possibility of lowering tariffs on Beijing. Donald Trump has imposed tariffs as high as 245% on some Chinese imports. Beijing has responded with sweeping counter tariffs. The trade war between the world's top two economies has spooked global markets. High-level talks on a ceasefire in Ukraine have been downgraded after the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio cancelled his participation. Instead, Washington sent its Ukraine envoy to the meet in London. The talks were held between the U.S., Ukraine and European officials on how to end the three-year-long conflict. French President Emmanuel Macron kicks off a two-day visit to Madagascar. The visit is intended to strengthen bilateral ties and amid ongoing colonial-era disputes. Macron wants to boost Paris's presence in the Indian Ocean. This is the first official trip by a French president to the former French colony in 20 years. The European Union slaps Apple and Meta with 700 million euros in fines. It's for breaking digital competition rules. The penalties could worsen the already fraught ties between the bloc and Washington. The fines are the first under the Digital Markets Act, which came into effect last year.
बैठो आप लोग कहां से आए टूरिस्ट हमारी शान है टूरिस्ट हमारी शान है गुनाहों का कत्लेआम बंद करो बंद करो First you give the heads water drop of water take a drop of water sir please
Darkness has to be thick and absolute, but light, even a tiny speck will do. You don't need the sun to light up a dark room. A small lamp is enough. That is the power of light over darkness. That is the power of hope over fear. And right now, Kashmir is living proof of it. I'm sure you already know what happened yesterday. Terrorists attacked a valley in Pahalgam. They killed 26 people in cold blood. And their goal was pretty clear, to spread fear and chaos. Yesterday they succeeded, but momentarily. 7 terrorists emerged from the forest into the valley. Thousands of tourists had gathered there. Their peace and joy was disrupted by a volley of bullets, like a dagger into the heart of Kashmir. Take a look.
कोई दिसता जहांगीर तो यार बिहारियां पे छजुलदे यार मौत दी कसम दी
Just imagine the horror. You're in the middle of a serene valley. You're surrounded by lush pine forests. But all of a sudden, you hear gunfire. You look around. There are 4,000 innocent tourists, some newlywed couples, some parents with young children, and some retired travelers. Like this man who was shooting a nice video, probably for his social media.
आतंकवादियों का हम लोग बाल बचे हैं।
He was lucky enough to escape, but dozens were not. As of now, 26 people have been confirmed dead. Another 17 are in hospital with injuries. All the fatalities yesterday were men. Survivors say the terrorists picked them out, that they only went after non-Muslim men. Remember, that's not just 26 individuals dead. That is 26 families destroyed forever. Children who will grow up without a father, spouses who lost their partner, and parents who will have to attend their own child's funeral. It is hard to put this grief into words, but this next video will give you an idea. It shows the immediate aftermath of the attack.
अरे नहीं हम लोग फौज हैं। हम लोग बैठो हम लोग फौज हैं। बैठो मेरे बच्चे को अरे हम लोग फौजी हैं, कुछ नहीं करेंगे। आपकी सेफ्टी के लिए आए हैं। आपकी सेफ्टी के लिए आए हैं। बैठो आपकी सेफ्टी के लिए आए हैं। हम इंडियन आर्मी हैं। बैठो। ये इंडियन आर्मी आप लोग कहाँ से आए हो? कहाँ से आए आप लोग? हैं आपके बच्चे कुछ नहीं करेंगे। थोड़ा बताइए। हुआ पति को मार दिया? नहीं बेटा शांत रहो। लो पानी पियो। कहाँ से आए लोग? हैदराबाद से।
That is what the terrorists wanted. They wanted to drive fear into the hearts of people. They wanted to divide and hurt us. And more importantly, they wanted to cripple the spirit of Kashmir. But they failed. Kashmiris are not surrendering to this fear. They are standing up against it. As news of the attack came in, candlelight vigils were held across the region.
देखिए, आज जो कायराना हरकत जो इन दहशतगर्दों ने की, जिसमें जो हमारे मेहमान हमारे यहाँ पे आए थे, जिस तरह इन दहशतगर्दों ने ये कायराना हरकत की, हम सब इसकी मजम्मत करते हैं।
Yesterday night it was grief, but today it turned into anger. Kashmir observed a valley-wide shutdown today. Virtually every shop was closed. It was the first such shutdown in 35 years. Kashmir's political parties took out rallies. Even shopkeepers and business chambers joined in. All of them had the same message: not in our name. Do not use Kashmir to justify your terrorism. It was indeed a loud and clear message. Let's hope it rings across the border.
Stop innocent killing us. Stop innocent killing us. Stop innocent killing us.
Stop innocent killing us.
Tourist हमारी शान है.
Kashmir's newspapers also joined the protest. All of them had a black front page today. Usually you have black text on a white background. Today it was white text on black. A number of Kashmiris also lined up to help the survivors. They opened up their homes and mosques to them. Take a look.
के लिए यहाँ पे बैठे हैं। ड्राइवर भाई को पता है यहाँ पे आप खाने के लिए भी आ सकते हो, सब कुछ फ्री है हमारी तरफ से यहाँ पे, वो टेंशन आपकी गलती, हम आपके साथ हैं, हमेशा सही हो जाएगा, हम आपके साथ हैं, आपको हम आँच आने नहीं देंगे, ये याद रखें, हम आपको आँच आने नहीं देंगे.
Speaking of mosques, a lot of them have condemned yesterday's attack. They call those terrorists enemies of Islam and Kashmiriyat. Here's one such announcement from a mosque.
दुनिया के कोने कोने से कश्मीर में लोग सैर तफरी के लिए तशरीफ लाते हैं और उन पे इस किस्म का प्रहार करना या इस किस्म का अटैक करना बुज़दिलाना है और हम पूरी अवाम मलेसा इसकी मजम्मत करते हैं.
Do you see the response? Terrorists wanted to spread fear through the valley. They wanted to divide the locals and tourists. But how did Kashmir respond? By taking out vigils and opening up their mosques, Kashmiris responded to darkness with light, and this should not surprise you. Kashmiri hospitality is famous across the world. Even yesterday, we saw an example of that. Among the 26 killed, there was only one non-tourist, a local named Syed Hussain Shah. He offered pony rides to tourists in Pahalgam. When the terrorists came, he tried to put up a fight. He tried to snatch the gun away from them. Syed lost his life in the process. But he gave the tourists valuable time to escape. This is the Kashmir that we cherish. This is the Kashmir that terrorists want to destroy. I know people are angry and grieving today, but trust me, we are too. At the same time, we should not lose sight of who the enemy is. This isn't Kashmiris versus tourists. This is India versus terrorism. We must unite against these terrorists and their backers across the border. There is no room for politics or hate. Now is the time to speak in one voice.
प्यारियां पे झुलते यार तुम मौत ही कश्मीर की गेम पे.
अरे नहीं नहीं नहीं, मेरे बच्चे को हम लोग फौजी हैं.
"24 hours later, the situation remains tense. The terrorists who carried out this attack are still at large. There's widespread anger from Jammu and Kashmir to every corner of the country. There is grief and anger. The Indian leadership is preparing a strong response. Yesterday, Prime Minister Modi flew back to New Delhi. He was in Jeddah on an official visit. He decided to cut short the trip, and he arrived early this morning. The Prime Minister held the first briefing at the airport itself. He met with key officials, including India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, and Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. Meanwhile, Home Minister Amit Shah was in Kashmir. He met security officials and members of the Jammu and Kashmir government. He also met with the families of victims. India's Defence Minister has issued a statement. Listen to this.
आप जानते हैं कल पहलगाम में धर्म को निशाना बनाते हुए आतंकवादियों द्वारा किए गए कायरतापूर्ण हमले में हमारे देश ने अनेक निर्दोष नागरिकों को खोया है. ऐसी हरकतों का जिम्मेदार और इसके जिम्मेदार लोगों को आने वाले कुछ ही समय में जोरदार तरीके से नजर आएगा. मैं देशवासियों को आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं.
A loud and clear response, that is what India is promising. A short while back, there was a meeting. The Cabinet Committee on Security, or CCS, met. CCS is India's top decision-making body on security matters. The Prime Minister chaired the meeting with all key ministers present, including Amit Shah, the Home Minister, who flew back to New Delhi this afternoon. The leaders discussed the situation on the ground. Operations are on in Kashmir. Sketches of the suspects have been released. Reports say 7 terrorists were involved. 4 to 5 of them came from Pakistan. The rest are believed to be locals. 3 security agencies have joined the hunt: the Jammu and Kashmir Police, the Army, and the CRPF, or the Central Paramilitary Forces. Sources say the attackers came prepared. They wore camouflage. They were armed to the teeth. They had assault rifles, guns like AK-47, even the M4 carbine assault rifles, which is an American weapon. They fired between 50 to 70 cartridges, and they filmed the attack. They had body cams on. Clearly, this was not just an attack to kill innocent people. It was designed to shock and to grab the world's attention. It was designed to undermine India. The terrorists wanted to embarrass the government of India. They chose to strike when a high-profile visit was on. US Vice President J.D. Vance is still in the country. Just yesterday, he hailed the deepening US-India ties. He highlighted India's rising global profile, and the terrorists wanted to derail that. They also wanted to halt Kashmir's economic gains. Since Article 370 was scrapped, since Jammu and Kashmir was stripped of its special status, it had made tangible gains. But now everything has hit pause. Today, Kashmir shut down completely. For the first time in 35 years, roads were empty, businesses were shuttered, schools and petrol pumps were closed. Kashmiris are standing up in peaceful protest. They do not support this attack. They want peace. And they came out in large numbers to make this point. Local politicians joined them. But restoring calm will take time. Security has been tightened across the region. Sensitive sites are being heavily guarded. This includes all key locations, tourist hubs and critical infrastructure. Checkpoints have been set up across Srinagar. That's the summer capital of Jammu and Kashmir. Thorough checks are underway. Vehicles are being stopped on the roads. Even pedestrians are being checked. And thousands of tourists are caught in the chaos. Many of them tried to leave today, but land routes are closed. This includes the important Srinagar-Jammu highway. This highway is a lifeline for Kashmir. It is Kashmir's only link to the rest of the country. The highway was already blocked before the attack because of landslides and flash floods, which caused some damage to the roads. But today, that highway was opened again, only for one-way traffic. This leaves the tourists with just two other options. They can either take a train, a special train service has been started for stranded passengers, or they can take a flight. Leading carriers are operating more flights to Srinagar, but only after an advisory from the government. Earlier, these same airlines tried to cash in on the chaos. As more people tried to book tickets, airlines jacked up the prices. Usually, one-way fare to a metro city from Srinagar is around 6,000 to 7,000 rupees. That's the average for a flight from Srinagar. But after the attack, prices were as high as 65,000 rupees, which is more than a 9-fold jump. So the government was forced to step in. It capped prices for airlines. Now flights from Srinagar are available for around 14,000 rupees. The terrorists wanted to sow chaos and to slow Kashmir's recovery. India's response is underway and Kashmir is bracing for what comes next.
Stance on Kashmir.
It was supposed to be just another morning. Families strolled in the meadows. They clicked photos. They took in the natural beauty. After all, this was Kashmir's own mini Switzerland, the Baisaran Valley in Pahalgam. But soon the peace was shattered by gunfire. By the time it stopped, 26 people were dead. These were tourists. They had come for the beauty. Instead, they found horror. This was not just another terror attack. It was a massacre in cold blood, eerily similar to another attack. October 7, 2023, when Hamas attacked Israel. Yes, that was a larger scale operation, but the similarities are impossible to ignore. A massacre of civilians, military-grade weapons, and a pre-planned operation. Look at the location of the attack. The Baisaran Valley, this is the Baisaran Valley. It is located around 5 kilometers from Pahalgam. Baisaran is a popular tourist spot, especially for picnics. It can only be reached by foot or on ponies. It has long, dark meadows and it is covered by pine forests on all sides. So the terrorists knew that tourists were there, and that is why they struck. There were a total of 7 terrorists. They combed through the area. They chose a day when 4,000 tourists were present in the Baisaran Valley. The tourists hid in the shadows. They struck in the middle of the day. This was a Hamas-style attack, ambush innocent civilians and spread terror. And there is one country that has its fingerprints all over this massacre. No guesses there, it is Pakistan. Just look at the build-up. In February, a meeting was held in Rawalkot, a town in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. They called it a solidarity meeting, but it wasn't your usual political conference. This was a full-fledged terrorist summit. Jaish-e-Mohammed, Lashkar-e-Taiba, and even representatives from Hamas, they all gathered under the same roof. Then last week, Pakistan's army chief gave this speech.
Our stance on Kashmir is absolutely clear. It was our jugular vein. It is our jugular vein. We will not forget it. And we will not leave our Kashmiri brethren in their heroic struggle, what they are waging against the Indian occupation.
He called Kashmir Pakistan's jugular vein. And they went for it. The terrorists carried military-grade weapons, American-made M4 carbine assault rifles and AK-47s. Some of them spoke in Pashto, a language spoken only in Pakistan and Afghanistan. So the trail leads back across the line of control, yet Pakistan is feigning shock. It says it has no connection to the attack. Pakistan is blaming what it calls homegrown terror, basically non-state actors. Islamabad says it is, quote-unquote, concerned. They aren't calling it an act of terror, but they're still concerned. Concerned? You host terrorists like they're honored guests at a banquet, and then clutch your pearls when they open fire. This is not concern, this is complicity. But why now? Why kill tourists at the height of Kashmir's spring bloom? Why draw international attention with such brutality? Well, simply because Pakistan itself is bleeding. Its economy is a corpse. Inflation has spiked beyond control, bread is unaffordable, and trust in the leadership has collapsed. There is complete chaos in Pakistan. The army needs a villain to deflect blame, and who better than the eternal enemy across the eastern border? They needed a headline that said, "Look over there." And so they manufactured one. Also, what better template than Hamas? The October 7 attack showed the potency of psychological warfare, the chaos, the symbolism, the global media attention. So Pakistan's terror planners took notes. They copy-pasted the playbook. The messaging is quite clear, but the least they can do is drop the concerned act. Your economy is in a shambles. Your people are starving while your generals build villas. You beg the IMF for scraps by the day, but at night you bankroll terror. You cannot hide behind the word non-state actors anymore. This is your Frankenstein. You trained them, you armed them, you gave them sanctuaries, and now you have the audacity to act shocked when they do exactly what they were bred for. So let's be crystal clear here. The blood in Pahalgam is not just on the hands of the terrorists, it is on the generals who trained them, the politicians who sheltered them, the clerics who radicalized them, and the nation that still dares to call itself anything except a terror factory.
Take a drop of water, sir, please.
Here's what we know about the terrorists. They belong to a group called the TRF, the Resistance Front. This group has claimed responsibility. As we've been telling you, 7 people were involved, 7 terrorists. The Jammu and Kashmir police have released 3 sketches. They're based on eyewitness accounts. And 3 names have been released: Asif Fauji, Suleiman Shah, and Abu Talha. Asif Fauji is believed to be the leader of this pack. He was reportedly trained by the Pakistan Army, hence the name Fauji, which means soldier in Punjabi and Urdu. So we know that the leader of this attack was trained in Pakistan, but that's not the only link. Survivors say that 2 of the attackers spoke Pashto, a language spoken in Pakistan and Afghanistan. The people of Kashmir do not speak Pashto. They speak Kashmiri or Urdu. So the attackers came from across the border. Even their method of attack reeks of military training. They wore combat fatigues, These clothes are worn by military personnel to blend into jungle-like surroundings. So the terrorists either wanted to camouflage themselves or they wanted to pose as security personnel to trick the tourists. They carried military-grade weapons like AK-47 assault rifles, tactical vests with magazine pouches and body cams to record the horror. Indian security agencies are investigating the attack site. They have made several initial assessments. Some victims were shot from a distance. Indian agencies have flagged sniper-like tactics. And this kind of training is highly advanced. Only militaries have snipers, or terror groups trained by militaries in this case. And these abound in Pakistan. Let me also tell you about the TRF, the Resistance Front, a shadow outfit of the LET, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, a terrorist group based in Pakistan, funded and trained by the Pakistan Army. The Lashkar-e-Taiba was co-founded by a man called Hafiz Saeed, the man who masterminded the 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. The LET is a globally recognized terrorist group. In 2019, their offshoot called the TRF emerged. This was after the abrogation of Article 370, which ended the special status of Jammu and Kashmir. Since then, the TRF has been active in Kashmir. India banned this group in 2023. Of course, Pakistan continues to support it because it needed to rebrand its terror factories. The Lashkar-e-Taiba was on global watch lists, so Pakistan relaunched it with a new name, the Resistance Front. And this meant two things. First, it no longer had Islamist names like Lashkar. And second, it now had words like resistance in the name. It's a poor attempt to brand it as a local-led movement, and it's fooling no one. The TRF is as Pakistani as it gets. Its weapons, its funding, its commanders all trace back to Pakistan. For example, the leader of TRF. His name is Saifullah Khalid, aka Saifullah Kasuri. Saifullah Khalid is believed to be the mastermind behind the Pahalgam attack. He was a top Lashkar-e-Taiba commander, also a close aide of Hafiz Saeed. And he leads the LET's Peshawar headquarters. Basically, everything points to Pakistan. And the TRF's modus operandi is exactly like the LET. Use social media to recruit youth, brainwash them by showing propaganda about Kashmir, send them to training camps and infiltrate them into India using the Pakistan Army's cover to kill innocent people. The TRF's blood trail is long. They have carried out more than 20 terrorist attacks in Kashmir over a period of 5 years. The victims are usually security personnel, but this time they went after tourists. And their violence has a pattern. No attack is carried out without body cams. They film their savagery to spread fear. This is the TRF's playbook, high visibility attacks to destabilize Kashmir's growth. Pakistan is the cornerstone for this group. Every move is approved by their handlers across the border. The TRF is the latest addition to Pakistan's proxy war against India. As India processes the horror, it must also ask a question. Did we not see this coming? Sources say the warnings were all there. Indian intelligence officials had warned about a hot summer in Jammu and Kashmir, which basically meant two things. First, increased ceasefire violations by Pakistan's army, and second, terror attacks in the Kashmir Valley. At least 70 foreign terrorists, 70 foreign terrorists are active in Jammu and Kashmir. This input was given by Indian intelligence. High-level meetings were held in March and April. The security situation was reviewed multiple times, and yet tragedy struck Pahalgam yesterday, despite all these warnings. So how did the terrorists manage to carry out such an attack? Were the warnings taken lightly? Was there a lapse in security? Only a full investigation will reveal the answers. Our next report has more.
The terror attack in Pahalgam has left India and the world in shock. Terrorists killed unarmed civilians at point-blank range. The attackers then fled. The Indian armed forces have launched an operation to track the terrorists down. But how did they manage to pull off such an attack? At the beginning of this year, Indian intelligence officials issued a stark warning. They said Pakistan was planning for a hot summer in Jammu and Kashmir. This meant two things. First, that Pakistan would increase ceasefire violations along the line of control. This would be done to provide cover to terrorists who would infiltrate to India. And second, terrorists would increase attacks on civilians in the Kashmir Valley. After the warnings, multiple high-level meetings were held in New Delhi. The first one was held in March, followed by another one in early April. Indian intelligence officials warned that at least 70 foreign terrorists were in the Kashmir Valley and that they were planning attacks on civilians. A few days later, terrorists attacked tourists in Pahalgam. But the build-up to this attack began about 2 weeks ago. The Pakistani army violated the ceasefire agreement multiple times. So the first threat assessment by the Indian intelligence agencies came true. And the ceasefire violations didn't stop. In fact, they only increased, forcing the Indian army to retaliate and launch combing operations to find traces of cross-border infiltration. However, some terrorists found a way to slip past the Indian security forces, leading to the massacre in Pahalgam. As India grapples with this horrific attack, Pakistan violated the ceasefire again on Wednesday. The Indian army retaliated and successfully foiled an infiltration bid, killing at least 2 to 3 terrorists. According to reports, these terrorists had direct links to Pakistan-based terror group Lashkar-e-Taiba. The Indian army has been deployed at large in the Kashmir region. However, Kashmir's topography and dense vegetation make security operations extremely challenging. Pakistan's ceasefire violations only add to the challenges. Despite the intelligence warnings, terrorists managed to carry out an attack in Pahalgam. Were the warnings not taken seriously? Not particularly. The Indian armed forces have been dealing with both Pakistan Army's cross-border firings and the recent rise in terror activities. So, was this a security lapse? Only a full investigation can reveal the answer. But right now, India is focusing on finding the terrorists who unleashed this mayhem on innocent tourists on Tuesday.
Indians will take time to process this grief, but the Indian government does not have that luxury. They must chart a quick response because such an attack must not be left unanswered. The question is, what should that response be? In one word, firm. I know that means different things to different people. For some, it could mean bombing Pakistani cities. For others, simple diplomatic condemnation. The government's job is to pick the right one. And yes, emotions will play a role here, but so should strategic and pragmatic thought. Just a short while back, India's foreign ministry briefed the media. It announced 5 measures against Pakistan. Number 1, India has temporarily suspended the Indus Water Treaty. This suspension will remain until Pakistan stops sponsoring terrorism. Number 2, the border checkpost in Atari has been closed. Number 3, visas issued to Pakistani nationals have been cancelled. They have 48 hours to leave India. Number 4, Pakistan's military advisors at the New Delhi mission have been declared persona non grata. They have a week to leave India. Indian defense advisors in Pakistan will also be returning. And number 5, overall strength of the high commissions will be reduced from the current 55 to 30. Listen to what India's Foreign Secretary said.
The CCS condemned the attack in the strongest terms and expressed its deepest condolences to the families of the victims and hoped for the early recovery of the injured. In the briefing to the CCS, the cross-border linkages of the terrorist attack were brought out. It was noted that this attack came in the wake of the successful holding of the elections in the Union Territory and its steady progress towards economic growth and development. The CCS reviewed the overall security situation and directed all forces to maintain high vigil. It resolved that the perpetrators of this attack will be brought to justice and their sponsors held to account.
So that's the diplomatic response. What about the military options? Number 1, a land-based operation in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, a sort of surgical strike. And India has done this in 2016. when Pakistani terrorists attacked an Indian army post in Uri. In response, Indian commandos crossed the line of control. They took out terror camps in POK. Such an operation is one option. Number 2, airstrikes using fighter jets. Again, this has been done before. In 2019, Pakistani terrorists had killed 40 Indian security personnel. In response, Indian jets bombed Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Option number 3 is drones. India has expanded its drone fleet since 2019. Plus, drone attacks have become common since the Ukraine war. We've seen Israel and Iran exchange drone strikes too. Number 4 is anti-terror operations in Kashmir, basically flush out terrorists operating in the valley, including those from yesterday's attack. So which of these will India choose? As things stand, a retaliation against Pakistan looks likely. Remember, the terrorists did not hit military targets. They killed innocent civilians in cold blood. So the public sentiment across the country is very clear. India must impose a cost on Pakistan. Secondly, a precedent has been set since 2016. First, a commando operation, then a full-fledged airstrike. So New Delhi has followed the policy of deterrence. When Pakistani terrorists hit, India hits back. The idea is to make Islamabad think twice before attacking. India did that in 2016. It did so again in 2019. But if you don't do it this time, it may dilute India's deterrence policy. Of course, this time Pakistan will be expecting it. Reports say they have declared a high alert along the LOC, so India is planning and Pakistan is waiting. I know some people want an Israel-like response. And yes, we get the anger and the emotions. But it's also important to be rooted in reality. Pakistan has nuclear weapons, Gaza did not. Israel wanted to kill Gazan civilians, India does not. In 2016 and 2019, India did not target Pakistani civilians. Our armed forces specifically took out terrorist targets. So the key is to pick the right option. You must answer the calls for revenge. You must impose a cost on Pakistan. You must weaken the terror infrastructure. And you must re-establish deterrence. Ideally, it should be a hybrid response. Use the military to make Pakistan pay and use diplomacy to bolster the anti-terrorist campaign. This is one of the deadliest terror attacks India has faced in 2 decades, probably the worst since 26/11, when civilians have been killed, lives lost without warning. And the perpetrators are the same, terrorists backed by Pakistan. Their methods are well known, and yet this attack is different. This one was a strike on progress, a deliberate blow to Kashmir's fragile peace. The target, Pahalgam, was chosen for a reason. Pahalgam is called the mini Switzerland of Kashmir. It is known for its meadows, forests, and pilgrimage routes. It draws thousands of tourists every spring. And this is why Pakistani terrorists decided to attack. This signals a shift in their tactics. They're targeting Kashmir's tourism. They're striking where it hurts most. For years, tourism has been Kashmir's lifeline, a symbol of returning normalcy. After Article 370 was removed, Kashmir saw a tourist boom, a steady visitor growth since 2018. 7 years back, around 16 million tourists visited Kashmir. Last year, this number crossed 20 million, and the surge continued this spring. Over 800,000 tourists visited Srinagar's Tulip Garden in just 26 days, including more than 3,000 international tourists. New Delhi has been actively promoting this region. In May 2023, G20 delegates visited Srinagar. Events and film shoots have been encouraged. Tourism infrastructure was being expanded. Kashmir was being sold to the world as safe, stable and growing, and Pahalgam was at the heart of that story because it is more than a holiday spot. It's a base for the Amarnath pilgrimage. It is where spirituality and growth intersect. And right now, it's peak tourist season, so the terrorists chose to strike now, when every hotel room is booked, when every meadow is crowded, and when the economy depends on footfall. The timing was no accident. It was a message, one that could unravel years of work. Kashmir's tourism sector is vulnerable now. The impact is already visible. Some travel agencies have lost 90% of their bookings. These tourists were supposed to visit in the days ahead. Most of them are cancelling. Others are shifting to safer options. The attack is a blow for Kashmir's tour operators. This is the time of the year they depend on, and it's falling apart. For Kashmiris who built businesses around tourism, this is a personal loss. Some of these people took loans, others sold land or jewelry. They invested everything into this season and they had hoped for income for a better future. But now that future lies in doubt. Kashmir needs tourism to keep its economy going. The sector accounts for more than 8% of its GDP. It provides thousands of jobs directly and indirectly. When tourism collapses, so does stability in Kashmir. The terrorists know that. For years, they avoided targeting tourists because they wanted to secure local support. They wanted to avoid global outrage. But that calculated restraint is now gone. And that is why this attack is different. It is not just a security threat. It is a strike on Kashmir's recovery, on lives and livelihoods, and the very idea of a peaceful Kashmir. When something like this happens, the world comes together. You forget geopolitics and ideology. Instead, you stand in solidarity with the victims. And most of the world is doing that. US President Donald Trump spoke to Prime Minister Modi. He condemned the attack and promised to fight against terrorism. His deputy, J.D. Vance, is in India right now. He too offered condolences.
I want to just, of course, issue our condolences to the people of Kashmir who were affected by this terrible terrorist attack. And obviously, we're providing whatever assistance and help we can provide to the government, to the people of India.
China also issued a strong statement. They condemned the attack in Kashmir yesterday. They also sent sympathies to the families.
China has noted the relevant reports and strongly condemns this attack. China firmly opposes terrorism in all its forms. We mourn the victims and extend our sincere sympathies to the families of the victims and the injured.
The list is quite long. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Russian President Vladimir Putin, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, all of them have condemned yesterday's attack. Like I said, countries tend to close ranks when something like this happens. But I'll tell you who doesn't. Western media outlets. For them, this is an opportunity, whether it's to take potshots at India or to question India's sovereignty over Kashmir. And I'll give you some examples. Here's the BBC's article on the attack. It uses the word terror 3 times, but not once to describe what happened yesterday. They simply quoted world leaders who called it terrorism. Now let me show you The Guardian. The same pattern. They've used the word terror 3 times, but only while quoting world leaders. And their first article was even worse. It said, suspected militants killed at least 26 tourists. The only thing suspect here is The Guardian's journalistic standards. Next is the New York Times. They have put terror attack in double quotes. I guess the massacre of 26 civilians does not qualify as terror. Sky News in Britain have done the same. They have placed the word terror in quotes. France 24 says the attack was carried out by gunmen, not terrorists, gunmen. And finally, you have the Turkish outlet TRT. Their headline takes the prize. Multiple tourists killed in Kashmir shooting incident. Incident. I guess technically they're right. In the same way, 9/11 was a building collapse. Did the World Trade Center collapse in 2001? Yes, it did. But is that the whole story? Absolutely not. These headlines reveal the bias in Western coverage. None of them have used the word terrorism. Their governments have used it. Their prime ministers and presidents have used it. But somehow, these media outlets simply cannot. All of them have called these terrorists gunmen and militants. Again, did these terrorists carry a gun? Yes, they did. But were they just gunmen? It's like saying the Americans carried out a military operation in Iraq. Yes, it was an operation, military in nature, but it involved invading and bombing the whole country. So my point is quite similar. Words and descriptions matter. These articles are read by millions of people. They shape public opinion in those countries, and that in turn shapes policy. So do not ignore these headlines by the Western media because they have real world impact. The question is, why do they do it? Why can't Western media call these attackers terrorists? The simple answer is politics. Let me take you back to October 2023. That's when Hamas launched an attack on Israel. Back then, almost all US media outlets called it a terror attack. Why do you think that is? Because these outlets are pro-Israel. So they don't mind calling Hamas terrorists. But when it comes to India, they downplay it. Here in India, we haven't done that. For us, 9/11 was a terrorist attack, October 7 was a terror attack, and so was yesterday in Kashmir, a terrorist attack. Media houses need to stop putting political filters on terror. It is pretentious virtue signaling at best and abetment at worst. A family traveling to celebrate their child's exam result, a businessman on vacation, a newlywed couple on honeymoon. The terrorists spared no one. As they massacred a valley in Pahalgam, a father was shot dead in front of his 3-year-old child, a wife stood in the pool of her husband's blood, and more than 24 families were torn apart. 26 innocent people were killed in cold blood. Who were these people? What were their stories? How are the survivors describing the horror that unfolded in Kashmir? Our next report tells you, and we must warn you, that it is disturbing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Vinay Narwal, a 26-year-old Navy officer from Haryana, got married last week. This happened yesterday. Terrorists opened fire, killing him on the spot.
पर थी क्या बोलते भेलपुरी खा रही थी मेरा पति साइड में था एक इंसान है उसने उसको गोली मार दी यहाँ पे उसने बोला कि ये शायद मुस्लिम नहीं है उसने उसको गोली मार दी.
Now, just about a week after getting married, Himanshi hugged her husband's coffin and gave him an emotional farewell salute. But theirs is not the only family whose summer holiday has turned into a nightmare. Thousands of tourists had gathered in the valley. They were enjoying the lush scenery, making videos, when all of a sudden, terrorists launched a massacre.
यहाँ पर अटैक हुआ आतंकवादियों का हम लोग बाल बचे हैं.
But not everyone was lucky enough to escape. The terrorists killed 26 people. All the victims were men, including 47-year-old Manjunath Rao from Karnataka. He was on a family vacation with his wife and son. It was a trip to celebrate their child scoring top grades in a recent exam. In a video, the family was seen enjoying a shikara ride just hours earlier.
मैं मंजुनाथ शिवमोगा कर्नाटक से कश्मीर प्रवास में आए हैं. अब हमारा कश्मीर टूर का दूसरा दिन है.
But little did he know that this holiday and his life would be cut short by the cold-blooded attack in Pahalgam. Rao's wife Pallavi thought that the gunshot sounds were from a military exercise. But minutes later, she found her husband lying in a pool of blood. Terrorists shot him in the head in front of his son. So she confronted the attacker. She told him to kill both her and her child. But the terrorists said, "I won't kill you. Tell Modi ji." To the terrorists, it didn't matter if a father died in front of his child, because several others faced a similar heart-wrenching fate, including US-based Bitan Adhikari. He was in the meadow with his wife and their almost 4-year-old son. Adhikari was also killed in front of his wife and child. Karnataka's Bharat Bhushan was visiting Kashmir with his wife and son. He was shot dead in front of his 3-year-old child. According to his family, the terrorist asked him if he was Hindu and then shot him. Something similar happened to Maharashtra-based Santosh Jagdale. His daughter says that he was asked to recite an Islamic verse. When he couldn't, he was shot dead, once in the head, then behind his ear, and in the back. Survivors of the attack say that the terrorists picked people out and only targeted non-Muslim men. The deceased include people from many states, including Maharashtra, West Bengal, Uttarakhand, Bihar, Punjab and Gujarat. A local from Pahalgam and a tourist from Nepal named Sudeep Nupane were also killed. And those who survived were understandably traumatized. In one incident, panic-struck survivors mistook Indian army personnel for terrorists.
अरे नहीं हम लोग फौज हैं. हम लोग बैठो हम लोग फौज हैं. बैठो बैठो मेरे बच्चे को अरे हम लोग फौजी हैं, कुछ नहीं करेंगे, आपकी सेफ्टी के लिए आए हैं।
Kashmir is often touted as being a heaven on earth, but Tuesday's massacre turned it into a hellscape. As coffins of the victims reach their families, an entire nation is united in their grief.
There's something hauntingly beautiful about Kashmir's spring. The snow melts off the mountains, you can see patches of emerald green, the landscape seems to pulse with life. For many, the season's arrival brings a sense of hope. The long winter finally retreating, the roads once again dotted with people. Spring and summer are busy seasons for Kashmir's tourism industry. It is usually swarming with tourists. And that was the case until yesterday, when tourists were killed in a terrorist attack. These are people who came for the beauty that the valley offers. Now that same beauty feels tainted, poisoned by the violence that has haunted Kashmir for decades. And the timing is no coincidence. In 2019, Jammu and Kashmir's statehood was revoked. After that, it was ruled directly by the centre. More than 5 years later, things were finally returning to normal. We had elections towards the end of last year. There's a new government in place led by Chief Minister Omar Abdullah. And this year, there was even a budget. Jammu and Kashmir got their first budget in 6 years. The economy grew by 4.89% since 2019. The per capita income has gone up by almost 148% in just 10 years. Unemployment is down to 6.1%. The valley was doing well, and contributing to all of this were two main sectors. The first is agriculture. Almost 43% of Kashmiris work in agriculture. Jammu and Kashmir is the largest walnut producer in India. It also exports apples and barley. The valley is also the sole producer of saffron in the subcontinent. Jammu and Kashmir, in fact, has set aside 815 crore rupees for agriculture. By 2030, Kashmir aims to build a 1 trillion rupee agri-economy. The other sector is tourism. Tourism contributes to over 8% of their GDP. It's a major source of income. Nearly 50 to 60% of the population is directly or indirectly involved in it. So it is a very important sector. Some call it the backbone of Kashmir's economy. In 2018, 1.6 crore tourists visited Jammu and Kashmir. Then there was the abrogation, followed by pandemic years. Tourism fell to an all-time low. It picked up in 2022 when just over 1 crore tourists visited the valley. In 2023, it was 2.11 crore people, and in 2024, it was an all-time high of 2.35 crore. In the last 3 years, tourism has risen by 15% every year. Foreign tourism is also booming, or was booming. Almost 300% up in the last 4 years. Bollywood too returned to the valley. More than 350 films and web series were shot here in the last 5 years. So Jammu and Kashmir was finally getting a chance to stand on its own again. The economy was growing, tourism numbers were rising, people were working, things were looking up. But that sense of hope seems shattered now.
काफ़ी सफ़र किया हमने पिछले 20 सालों से. अब 3-4 साल से हमारी इकोनॉमी थोड़ा ग्रो हो रही थी. आप तो देख रहे हैं अब क्या है. इसकी जितनी भी कंडेमिनेशन होगी एकदम.
You could see it as soon as the news broke. Phone lines started ringing off the hook. Tourists started cancelling their trips. Hotels were busy helping people check out. Cabs rushed people to the airports.
हमारे पास शब्द नहीं है कि हम बयां करें कि हम कैसे दुखित है और आतंकित भी है. तो हमारे और 2 दिन थे कश्मीर में रहने के लिए, तो हम लोग अपना सब टूर कैंसिल करके अब अभी जा रहे हैं जम्मू.
नहीं, अब क्या घूमना है, माहौल ऐसा है तो पहले सेफ्टी देखना है ना. घूमने का तो तब होगा जब रिलैक्स माइंड होगा. अभी तो सबको यहाँ पे टेंशन है, तो कहाँ पे घूमेंगे.
Travel operators are bracing for a sharp downturn. They say this year's tourist season would be a washout. And there's another event that looms on the horizon, the Amarnath Yatra. That's the annual pilgrimage to the Amarnath cave. It attracts lakhs of devotees every year. For Kashmir, the Yatra is more than a religious event. It is a vital source of income. Hotels, lodges and local businesses depend on the influx of pilgrims every summer. So there's concern over the safety of that too. But let's look at the bigger picture here. It is easy to talk about growth rates, income averages, and job statistics. But those figures do not capture what is really at stake here. It is about survival. This is a region that has been trapped in cycles of violence and uncertainty for decades. One moment, the valley seems to be standing tall, its economy flourishing, its people hopeful. The next, everything comes crashing down. And that's what's so painful about it. It's not just the loss of life, it's the loss of the future that Kashmir is trying to build. The snow will melt again next year, the valley will bloom again, the tourists may return, but the question Kashmir still grapples with is this: will peace ever stay long enough to take root? That's all that we have for you on the show tonight. This is a developing story. We will continue to bring you all the updates. Our prayers and thoughts are with the families of the victims. Do stay with Firstpost YouTube channel for more on this. We'll see you tomorrow.